I want to know the hardest part of being a pilot. I also want to know, what is your favorite part?
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nick Fialka.
Hey, pilot. It's episode 100. 100. We did it. I can't believe I've done 100 episodes of this show. I cannot believe that I've spoken into this microphone 100 times. I cannot believe that so many people listen to this show. This year's been nuts. It's been so fun. I went from nothing, from just begging and pleading people to just return my emails, to being inundated to where I can't even keep up. And I've had so many serendipitous encounters with people who are on the journey, who are doing, also like whether you're just starting out or you're at your dream job. I've just so many people. The other day, I was at a hotel, 4 a.m. bus time, and I'm standing there in Orlando, and a guy comes up to me and he says, "Hey, you're Nick Fialka." And every time it happens, I love it. And it's so nice and it's so generous. And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I want you to go tell the Spitfire team that they changed my life. Your show and the work that the coaches do changed everything for me." And I was just speechless, and I just thankful. And we took a photo, and I'm over the top thankful, and I'm humbled. And here we are now at episode 100, and this is a special show for me because it's different. It's me and Anna. Anna is my wife. And we just sat down and had a conversation. It's literally us talking. It is our after dinner conversation. And I ask her questions. We talk about what life is like. And hopefully what I want is for this show, this episode here, to be helpful to your spouse, whether he's a guy or a girl or whatever. Like, I wanted to see how she felt as the person that's not the pilot, as the person that is at home dealing with all the struggles. And, I love her so much. And there's just so much. She gives more than she is. And she gives more than I deserve. And I was just texting a guy today about the difficulty of being married, having a family, and this job. And I got to tell you, yeah, there's ups and there's downs. There's hard parts and easier parts. But I certainly, I can't imagine being stuck at a desk from 9 to 5, because I've done that. I've done the 9 to 5. I've done the 90-hour work weeks, man. And there's so much freedom in this job. The only way it can work is because Anna is cheering for me. And so that's 100. This is episode 100. This is me and Anna. I sat around for a little while deciding whether or not we should put this out, because a lot of people ask about what Anna thinks and what her thought process is. And if it weren't for her, there would be no podcast. I mean, straight up. And each time I go make an episode, she's sacrificing because she's managing the kids while I'm over here interviewing somebody. So thanks, Anna. I love you. You're amazing. And for the pilot, I hope you have an Anna, because, gosh, I'm the luckiest. And you guys, I want you to be that lucky. I hope you really enjoy this show.
And last but not least, let's have a quick word from our sponsors, because without them, we wouldn't have this awesome podcast.
Hey, pilot, did you just get a new conditional job offer? Are you getting out of the military and going to move your family across the country? Are you going to move in base somewhere, or are you going to go out to find that second home that you've been looking for? Well, I want you to stop right now, pick up the phone, and call Marty and the team at Trident Home Loans. It's an organization that's run by pilots. They understand pilot pay. They understand contracts. They understand military. They have the best VA loans in the United States. Marty and his team have been doing mortgages for years. They've been doing my mortgages for years. I trust him and his team more than any other organization. I challenge you to get a better deal anywhere else. Go ahead, reach out, get a mortgage quote, and then call Marty and his team. They will walk you through the process and show you how competitive their rates are. So go right now, tridenthomeloans.com, and check them out.
Hey, pilot. I want to tell you about a great friend of the show, Timothy P. Pope. He's a financial planner, and he's completely focused on the professional pilot. He's the kind of guy you want to go to for real talk to help you figure out your financial future. With so many upgrades and so many transitions and so many things going on, you owe it to yourself to give him a call. He'll help you design and execute really smart financial planning strategies, whether it's retirement planning, investment management, military transition, tax planning. He's a great financial planning partner. Timothy P. Pope, CFP, helping professional pilots make the most out of life. Give him a shout. All the information's in the show notes. You should definitely tell him I told you to call.
Hey, pilot.
Hey, wife, what's up?
The kids are in bed.
The kids are in bed, and we are doing some crazy stuff like recording in the podcast room. Man, why are you drinking so much water in the podcast room, in the studio?
It's clear liquid.
It's hot. They can't see the liquid,
Oh.
but they do know. Well, they don't know, but it's hot. It is so hot. We just bought this house. The kids are in bed. And the air conditioning broke pretty much immediately because, yeah, it doesn't matter, but it's broken. And here we are recording
Here we are.
in a broken podcast studio. It's very sad. It's very sweaty. I've been recording for a solid hour and I'm sweating like crazy. Are you starting to get hot?
I feel great. I think that fan feels good.
Good. Hopefully they can't hear the fan. So I've been rambling for almost 2 minutes now, and you're probably wondering, what in the hell is Nick doing right now? And this is Thursday. It's a solo episode, and here we are. Well, guess what? I've got Anna, who
Surprise guest.
surprise guest, my wife, but not a guest because two become one. So it's still just me. She just laughs at me the whole time. All right. So, but we are going to talk about, and I wanted to do this. I've had a lot of people reaching out, asking. There's a lot of fear, right? The idea of being a professional pilot.
Well, the unknowns, right?
Yeah. We just talked to our friends, Paul and Susan, individually. You talked to Susan and I talked to Paul about what life is like flying and what to expect and what not to expect. And I wanted to bring you on to have the conversation from your perspective because I can't remember, how many kids do you have?
Well, we have.
How many do we have?
We have 5.
5. That's right. I forgot. That one, the little one's easy to overlook.
He's so cute.
He is so cute. What a sweet boy. But I think you have a really great perspective. Plus, you have
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I pay you for your perspective. I'm like, here's $5. Thank you for such good perspective. But you have been a podcaster way longer than me. You were on the 21.5 show with Dylan and Max, and they asked
I go way back.
Before I even thought about podcasting. It's their most popular episode. Do you know that?
Wow.
Yeah, you are on the most popular episode. And so you unpacked a lot about, so if you want to listen to the 21.5 podcast and hear Anna's perspective on being the wife of an aviator, you can certainly get that perspective because we've done a lot of different stuff. And so what I want to talk to you about today, I want to get your perspective on what it's like. To set the stage, I guess, I was in the military and I got out of active duty and we had not met yet.
Right.
And
We met right after.
I got out of active
I was
duty.
invited to your go away party.
That's right. She was invited to my going away party and she did not come because she
That's
thought
weird.
she thought it would be weird.
You cannot go to a go away party that you don't know the person.
That's right. But there were like 300 people there and the police
How was
came.
I to know?
The police came.
You know what? If I had gone, it wouldn't have been right.
That's right. That's right.
It's just, it was not meant to be that night.
That's right. And so I'm glad that everything kind of worked out how it did. I'm very thankful. But you have rolled with me through the reserves through a year-long deployment where you had a baby and you raised a baby until I came home to a 1-year-old. And you also have...
That was hard, but such a good year.
It was a good year for me in Africa. I'll never forget it. It's probably the highlight of my career. It's like, if I had chosen to do it, I'd have never chosen to do it. I'd have never chosen to leave.
Yeah, me either. Remember that day I was like, I just found out I was pregnant.
Yeah.
And I called you to say, hey, something's got to change because I'm pregnant. And you're like, guess what? It's about to change.
It was the same day. You found out you were pregnant. I was on reserve in Miami.
Yeah.
And either way, you just go to the bar.
But you know what? God writes better stories than we can. We wouldn't have chosen that. You wouldn't have chosen to go there. I wouldn't have chosen for you to be gone. In so many other ways, it was such a good year.
Yeah. Gosh.
Okay, we have to talk about what we're supposed to be talking about.
Sure. And so that's important. And so what I want to talk to you about is what this ride's been like. We've been, let's see, maybe 6 years, 7 years as professional pilots, a family. It's a professional pilot family. And we've done the regionals. We've done...
Wow. I didn't realize it was that long.
It's 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we did the regionals for a solid 4+ years. And we did the ultra low cost carrier for a heartbeat. And then we did the...
Add in your deployment.
And then we did a deployment and we did the majors. So let's talk about regional life, okay?
Okay. Buckle up, guys.
How much money were we making in the regionals?
I don't know, but it wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. It was what, like about $1,500 every 2 weeks? Yeah.
We had savings.
We did.
That's what we lived on.
We burned through, I want to say, almost $600,000 in 4 years.
Yeah.
It was awful. But we did it. And so what was it like at that point? Like,
And I was not working.
right.
I was not working. So what was it like? It was like trim the fat, trim all the fat in your budget. And I don't know. You just do it. You just make it work. You don't go out to eat that much. You just do it. I mean, I don't...
Yeah, it's tricky, huh?
It's just what it is. And I will say one thing that helped us, I think, is we made a commitment to not have credit card debt.
That's right.
And so it just sort of was. I mean, one thing that is incredible to me is just the waves of money comes and money goes. And I don't know, you just can't always depend on your salary being forever. So it's important to save. I would say it's important to save, but also it's important to just live in reality of like, okay, we have a $1,500 paycheck and that almost covers our mortgage.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I would say that we are not the kind who, I wish we were. We're not the kind who balances our,
Checkbook.
Thank you.
What you call.
At the end of every week. But we did. We lived as much as we could within our means. And all of us made sacrifices, right, of things that we would want. But it's not there. You know what I mean? Like, I think of how much you love a nice cigar.
Yeah, I love a cigar.
And you went without a lot of times. I know.
For years. Yeah.
And it's not just, it's like finding the ways to make it fun, we're pretty minimal in a lot of ways. We're maximal in a few key ways. Like just making birthdays fun without having to spend beyond your limit.
Yeah.
And the limit changes, right? Like through the years, through seasons, through jobs, it changes, but just living in.
What do you think when you talked to Susan the other day, what were you telling her? What were you talking to her about what this life is like?
Wait, I want to know, when you think of regionals, what do you think of?
What do you mean? As far as like the life was like?
Yeah.
I thought a couple things. So we were not living in base. We were living in Pensacola. I was commuting to Miami. And that was really, really hard.
Yeah.
And at first I commuted to Chicago. That was extra hard. I did not like being away. And so
Did you realize we have done both now? In the beginning, do you think you realized that? Or do you just in hindsight think, wow, I could have been home so much more? Do you think in the moment, like when you were sitting in Miami, were you thinking, I wish we lived in base?
I do, because I flew with so many guys that had driven in. And then I was going to land and wait 2 hours for the next flight.
That's right.
And I didn't know if I was going to get it. You remember when I flew to Tallahassee and then I'd have to rent a car with, like, I tried to get other pilots that had to go from Tallahassee to Pensacola. Yeah.
That was bad.
It was bad. So living in base, when we moved in base, we moved to Fort Worth, Texas and moved in base. And that was a big change. Like that was like the best change I think we've ever made.
Yeah.
I love Pensacola.
I'd agree.
Pensacola is the place I love above all towns for sure.
I know it's yeah. It feels home. It feels like home.
I loved Fort Worth. I really enjoyed Fort Worth. The thing I loved most about Fort Worth was driving to work. And I thought that gave us so much more time, because even if I had to get up at 4:00 in the morning for an early departure, the most I was gone was like 3.5 days. So day 1, I'm flying. Day 2, I'm in the hotel. Day 3, I'm in the hotel. Day 4, I'm back home. That was nice.
I think I did not realize that. When we were living in Pensacola, I was just sort of like, oh, it's fine, because I wasn't the one sitting in the airport for...
Yeah, that's not fun. If you're on reserve, it's really not fun. I mean, really not fun. If you're on reserve and you have to fly somewhere to be on reserve to not fly, because then you have to pay for a hotel room and all those other things. Do you remember? So we didn't have enough money to buy a hotel room.
I remember that horrible hotel.
I stayed at a nasty hotel that cost $50 one night in Miami. It was awful. So most of the time I slept in the airport, and I would go to the Amex lounge because I have that Amex Platinum card. And I would go to the Amex lounge and take a shower, and then I'd be in my pilot uniform all day and not fly. And that
it's like, remember that movie? What was that movie where the girl lived in Walmart?
That's
Remember what is that movie? But that's
Yeah, that's what it was like.
I'm sorry, babe.
It's all right. I just wanted to pay the electric bill.
Yeah. So I mean, from our perspective at home, I think that it was much more stable, probably.
Okay.
I mean, because you would same kind of thing, like you go to work and we are doing our same thing. So, okay, so I will say this. You went from, we have had seasons where you've been like deployed or gone for 3 months with military training or operations or whatever. So it's not the first time that you're like gone for a bit and then back. But immediately before this, you were working sort of a 9 to 5.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think it is a really big exercise in empathy for your husband or spouse, for your spouse to be gone, particularly probably with small children at home. We had all small children at home and just sort of stair step, 7, 5, 3. And those days are exhausting. They're exhausting to be with small children all day and try to have patience in your voice and, all the things, to matching the energy that kids have and helping them regulate emotions and you trying to regulate your own emotions and all the work that parenting is and the chaos that it can feel like. And you then in the middle of your schedule, or you're on call and you are just sitting. You're just sitting somewhere in silence. And like in my mind, it takes work for me to think, oh my gosh, Nick just had to take a shower in a public place.
It's like going to Buc-ee's.
Yeah. So like I have to make myself think that instead of just thinking, oh my gosh, Nick is just sitting in silence. That sounds amazing. Like
I just talked to somebody the other day at one of the conferences, a wife. There were a handful of wives there, and one of them, and they're all new. And one of the conversations we had was about that part of it. Like, oh, my husband's out there staying at a hotel. I'd give all our life savings to stay at a hotel tonight.
Yeah. Not be interrupted, not be kicked in the night by a toddler who had a nightmare and not woken up 3 times by the baby.
But you also don't get to choose at that hotel if somebody else is having sex in the next hotel room, because that happens more than you can imagine.
Well,
you'd take it. I'll take it. Give it no kids. Let's go.
I'll take it. Put my noise cancellation earphones on. No, but seriously, it really is because, and it takes a cognitive reminder to yourself. You know what? I know Nick is a good man who loves his kids and wants to be at this soccer game.
I do.
And so it is a sacrifice for you too, to not be there. It's a sacrifice for me, maybe sacrifice, maybe a stretch, but
a forced sacrifice.
Well, it is my choice, right? It is my choice to put together a dinner in Benko boxes before we go to a soccer game and have all of I know Nick hates that I bought Bento boxes.
These stupid boxes. We have so many. If you have a box, if you are an inventor and you will invent some way to keep some food in a thing, my wife will buy it.
Listen, but kids do better with a tray. They do better with a tray. Okay, you guys weigh in, please.
Listen,
support me.
You just put it in a blender and blend it and pour it.
Anyway, okay, so the rush and the work of getting after school stuff and homework and dinner on the road, and you don't have money right at the time to and even if you did have money, you don't want to be eating Chick-fil-A all 3 nights a week that you're out at soccer practice or whatever, wherever you are. So the work of doing that all by yourself is, I have to remind myself, you know what? If Nick were here, he wants to be here. And if he were here, he would be helping. But his sacrifice is that he's not helping make dinner tonight, or he's not practicing soccer with somebody, or helping somebody ride their bike, or helping with algebra or whatever. He's sitting there alone. And that's also a perk for you, but it's also...
It's a double-edged sword, I guess.
It's you have to explain to the kids and remind them, right?
That's the worst.
I'm not going to be here for that. Yeah. I'm not going to be here for the birthday or whatever. And I think we do our best. Let's talk about missing stuff.
Listen, I tell you what, when we lived in Monterey, I was really glad that I got a chance to go to the school play and not miss the school play.
Oh, yeah. They did so well.
Yeah.
But, okay, I grew up in my family, my parents... By the time I was in high school, both of my parents were working at night. Yeah. And so because I had that experience, probably it's not so tragic to me that you miss something, because my dad worked in medicine. And so he was I think they worked Thanksgiving and the next year they worked Christmas or something like that. So it wasn't uncommon for my dad to be working on a holiday, or that's not foreign to me. But I will say, I think that it just is so important, because I do know some people that have a really hard time with that. And I think it is really important for us to, A, believe the best about each other, and B, recognize that your life is not built on these big moments, right? It's not the Christmas morning. You're not making or breaking somebody's personal history by not being there for all together 4 Christmases of their lives. You know what I mean? There are 364 other days.
Yeah. All right. So I have a couple questions that I've been thinking about. I want to talk to a couple different groups of people.
Okay.
So first off, your Navy wife.
You want me to talk to a Navy wife?
Well...
Is that what you're saying?
No, I just want to ask my question.
Oh, okay.
Well, I would like you to talk to an Air Force. Oh, she's giving me a glare. I actually laid that out there just so we could have that moment. Oh, my goodness. Okay, so you are a Navy wife. Mm-hmm. You, whether you like it or not, you signed up to be actually, I was already in the Navy when we got married. So, and you get a lot of phone calls from women whose husbands are leaving the military. I think of a couple things. They ask you, what things are like and this, that, and the other. So I want you to talk to what kind of
points that you bring across when you talk to these women.
Yeah. Okay. So we're getting out of the military. Should we, and we're thinking about becoming, or my husband is thinking about, or I'm thinking about becoming a pilot. What don't I know?
Yeah. What can I expect?
What can I expect? So here's what I'll say, especially military people, especially pilots who are in the military, wife, you or spouse, you are already used to that person coming and going. So you have a good idea of whether that's going to work for your family or not. If you begrudge every time they go for
Amen.
3 weeks,
Yes.
he probably needs to go sit at a desk somewhere and come home every night at 5 o'clock.
Go work for Booz Allen.
Go work for a bank.
Yeah.
Go work for whatever corporation. So if you need that, it's okay. It's okay. If you need him to be home every night to help you do bath time and help you clean up after dinner.
Oh, we should go clean up after dinner too. We forgot to do that today.
It's on the list. It's still on the list. Okay. So, but seriously, like if you need that, it's okay. But that's not going to happen in pilot life.
Yep.
So if you are okay, and of course, it takes a little bit of getting used to when the person comes back. But if you guys are all right with the coming and going, do it.
Why?
Be a pilot family. I will say, for one thing, there does seem to you do get in a rhythm of it's not 3 months gone. It's not a year gone. It's not the huge ordeal of a deployment. It's not the huge ordeal of even a debt out for 6 weeks or whatever. It's just 3 days, 4 days. And it's like, then when you're home, you're really home. Now you do side hustle and like, and have hobbies and you have lots of fun things going on. But I will say you're not required. Like you are not chained to an email that you are required to respond within 30 minutes or within an hour. You are not chained to that. And so on those days that you're home on the weekends, great. And it's family time. But really my favorite days are when it's Tuesday and everybody's at school except for the baby, or it's just the toddler and the baby.
And we get to hang out.
And we get to hang out. We get to go for a run, or we get to go for a big bike ride, or we get to go for a date, or we get to finish these 3 projects that are looming, or unpack the last 5% of our house that's making us crazy.
We're actually sitting, our room with no air conditioning is completely, there's no storage, no room to put anything. It's just.
Well, wait, but there is storage, but it's just right there. It's just not addressed yet.
It's not addressed yet.
So
everybody that's listening is more than welcome to come and spend the night in the podcast room. But if you bring a second person, it's going to be way more uncomfortable than you can imagine because it can only fit one human. It's so bad.
And so I know it's like there's a path.
There's a path.
Anyway, but those are my favorite days because it's like, when you're working 9 to 5, you don't get that unless you take a day off. And so I think it's lovely. You do have some flexibility with like flying, and especially I imagine if your kids are older, you have the flexibility to kind of do a few more things. And I think it's great.
Yeah. So through my career, I've worked for the union. I've done, I represented hundreds of pilots in the worst moments of their professional career.
Yeah.
And you were very gracious when we would get calls all times of night. It was like being back in the military, right? Whether it's somebody getting a DUI or crashing a plane or like all those things, or like somebody having just a crisis. And so I appreciate, and they never knew, they don't know, but you gave them that opportunity for you helped them and they don't even know that you did. So that's awesome.
Thanks, babe.
Yeah.
Like just speaking to, I guess, the average pilot, how many people, like what percentage you think of pilots are like working with the union or like required with that?
Very, very, very tiny.
Yeah. So that's not a normal, the average Joe, what do you think the regular name for a pilot? What's the most common pilot name?
I don't know.
Charles.
I was going to say Charles.
You were?
I was.
I think that's right.
Chuck Yeager.
We have a little Chuck.
We do have a Chuck.
Okay. Anyways, so that like those phone calls and stuff like that most people are not going to have that.
So the complexities happen if you do have those side hustles, because I have Spitfire, I have the podcast, I did interview prep, I take 100 phone calls a day from people looking for, just trying to get a question answered. Mm-hmm. It's just so hard. Like, I'm the guy that's got the bucket of answers to your questions, but I don't.
And you love helping.
Well, I just love helping.
And figuring it out. Okay, so so what to expect? I think if you're coming from military, you already have a good idea.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
of whether it's going to be good for your family.
Okay. So we also, you weren't just a Navy spouse, but we did I was working in consulting. I was working, let's see, how many hours a week do you think I was working?
I mean, you could say 40 average. I mean, but probably more.
So I was working a lot more when I was in the Pentagon writing the budget.
Oh, yeah.
I was probably working.
When we were in DC, that was a lot.
Yeah. I would come home at 11, 12 o'clock and leave at 5 a.m. It was crappy.
Yeah.
So you have a person that's been in the business world for a long time, like me. Mm-hmm. And that's why we decided from the business world to go into the corporate, into professional aviation.
Well, and you owned a business too.
I did. Yeah.
So like
we did.
And so it was nonstop. I mean, it was just nonstop. And that is hard.
So what was that like? Talk to me about the transition from working with Booz Allen, owning the RV park, and then going to the airlines.
Honestly, I loved it because you did. It wasn't just that. I guess that's why my memory is blurred about how many hours you worked because you were doing basically 2 over full-time jobs. So that was really, I mean, like I remember it was somebody's birthday and like there was somebody who had like their sewage line or something was messed up and you couldn't ignore it. And so you had to go. And that's like,
it was the birthday ever.
It's really crappy.
Really crappy.
So like, of course, like if I were the person with the sewage problem, I would want the owner of the business to come handle it and fix it right away. So I'm glad you did. But for a family with small children and anyway, it was just constant. It was just constant.
Yeah.
And so
we were living in a mobile home.
That's the nicest mobile home though, wasn't it?
It was not bad.
I put up wallpaper.
Oh.
It was so cute. I was just reminiscing about that's when our babies were all in nurseries and they were so beautiful and so clean.
And now they're so ugly.
And now our kids are really messy.
They are messy.
Anyway, so it's not like so peaceful.
So what do you tell that person, that spouse that you talk to, who's the other person has been working this 9 to 5, or clocking in, clocking out, and then they started banging out some hours. So you have the 9 to 5, but then they've been going off and getting their flight time so they can do it.
Yeah.
So that they can get this job. How is that different than the military person?
I would just focus, honestly, I would focus on the exciting parts of like, okay, you guys are together and home on a weekday. I mean, it's not like, I don't mean to make it sound like we're running through a field with butterflies every Tuesday. We're not, but but it is fun that you're home and we're together, or it affords us the capacity to like do something that we don't have to pay babysitter for. I mean, honestly, like doctor appointments, like the not glamorous date days are like, oh, okay, then since you're home, I can go to the dentist, or since you're home, you know, whatever. And I don't have to leave the baby with a babysitter and pay you guys.
What?
Babysitters.
Oh my gosh, babysitters, y'all.
Well, we have 5 kids. And so most of the time we have 2 babysitters.
2 babysitters. I was just talking to somebody about this.
I know. Well, okay. Anyways, we're very close. We're on the brink of having a child who's old enough to be responsible.
Have you met those kids? They're not responsible.
They're almost.
Oh my gosh.
Give us a few years. Anyway, so that's a thing, right? It's like to go do anything if you don't just have the baby, then, I mean, it's just nice for you to be home, to have the flexibility of doing appointments or doing a hobby that I want to do, or there is flexibility and
It's really awesome to get the kids to school, drop them off, and think about how are we going to fill these next few hours? And whether it's mowing the lawn or giving you the opportunity to go to the dentist or get a hair, yeah, those things are important. And the one thing I want to bring home, and I've seen this a few times, and I see this in the aircraft. Boy, do I see this in the aircraft from my point of view. Those spouses, it's almost exclusively men. I think it probably is exclusively men. Those guys that are having a rough go at their relationship and are resentful of their spouse, or their spouse is resentful of them. The spouse is resentful of them.
What do they resent?
What does the spouse resent?
Yeah.
That they're going gallivanting off doing a thing while they're stuck at home with the kids and the responsibilities and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, it's easy to get there.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it is.
And so we had this Mrs. Wallace. You remember Mrs. Wallace?
Yeah.
She was, I mean, what a woman. So this woman, I want to say she's in her mid to late 60s, and we met her as a retired Navy wife, and her husband was a captain in the Navy, did all the things, and they lived right next to the Naval Academy, right?
Yeah.
And she said the most awesome thing. We were spending some time because our electricity had gone out in our house in DC. And so we drove out to Annapolis to stay with them because there was no electricity and we had a newborn baby.
Oh, yeah.
And she gave us this talk for like 2 hours about how she raised her children. And when the Navy would call and say, you're deploying to Guam, or you're going to Germany, or you're going to do whatever, and the kids are uprooted from their schools and they're leaving their friends and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
She said, I had 2 choices. I could blame him and blame Ed and know that it was his fault, or I could look to my kids and say, we have a great opportunity and we are going to go on a family adventure and do this. And this is the exciting thing about it. And it's like that supportive nature that she brought. Like, you carry that like crazy, because there's no way in hell this marriage would last if you didn't do that. There's no way. You'd be out of here and I'd be with this huge mortgage. And
well, here's the deal, right? Like, yeah, you can resent that other person, and it is easy, right? It's easy because I am, like, we'll stick with the example of, like, I'm the one hustle out the door in the morning, and the responsibilities during the day, and the hustle then to do homework and make sure everybody's done their chores and make a dinner and go to a practice and do bedtime. And then all the things relationally that have to happen in the midst of all that. It's exhausting. It could be easy to focus on that, of all the work that I am doing. But I am not the only person in the family. And so I think it goes back to that same practice empathy. I wonder, and sometimes I even say this to the kids, like if they're eating, especially if they're eating something, oh, it's so maddening, right? To like cook a dinner that you're really proud of, or like you don't want to cook. You want to go out to eat, but you cook a dinner and you sit down and nobody wants to eat it. And everybody doesn't care for it. And, you know, you basically like waste a whole meal because nobody's eating. And in that moment, a lot of times I'll say, I wonder what Papa's eating for dinner. And, you know, when we were at the regionals,
you know what I'm eating for dinner?
A pack of tuna.
Yeah, I still am.
And so,
I'm captain at a major airline, still eating tuna on the road.
Well, so like, but just like, yeah, like I wonder what Papa's doing right now. Like at the game when somebody says, gosh, I wish that Papa were here, or gosh, I wish, you know, whatever. Well, I wonder what he's doing right now. I think he's flying. I wonder if he's sleepy. I wonder if he's, you know, like, just because it is so easy to think of all the things that I'm doing. But you know what? That's not it. You know what I mean? Like, you're doing it too, and you are far away. And a lot of times you're like, I don't know. I'm sure you're like annoyed, but like sometimes it's like I FaceTime you and somebody's having a tantrum just to try to see another face or like snap somebody out of it, you know?
It's tough, that. So I'll tell you what, there's no deeper guilt like than having that FaceTime thing pop up in the aircraft, and I'm going to push back or whatever I'm going to do. And so whenever I answer a video call from you or any call, if I'm on the road, I always just say, hey, how are you? I just talk with you. I don't tell you that I'm like in a pinch and I have to go. And like, I never do. And so you'll roll into your airing of grievances and I'll hear it until the clock starts ticking.
I got 2 minutes, babe.
Baby, I got to go. Listen, I love you so much. Can we put a pin in this and keep talking about it? But that's a real deal. Like, that's a hard thing. That's probably one of the hardest things that I face as far as our family goes to figure out how to manage properly is when you call me, you expect me to pick up. And when I do, you want time. You need that time. And I probably shouldn't answer unless I could give you that time, but I do answer even if I can't give you that time. And that's hard. That's a really hard thing. I don't know.
Yeah. Kate Bear, the poet.
No.
She has this
B-E-A-R, B-A-R-E.
B-A-E-R, B-E-A. No, it's B. I don't know.
I don't know any poets.
It's not B-A-R-E.
It's not Shel Silverstein.
There's a B and an A and an E.
I'll put it in the show notes.
She has this really great poem about like the texts that are deleted that she does not send her husband.
Oh my God.
But it makes me so real, right? Of like,
how many do you not
How many times do I not call you? Yeah. How many things do I delete from texting you because of that same thing? I know.
Yeah.
I know. And what are you going to do about it? Right? Like if somebody else is having a hard day, what are you going to do about it? But it does alleviate just the sharing that burden of, to me, the hardest part of parenting really is the bearing the weight and guiding emotions.
Developing emotions.
For 6 people.
Yeah, there's 7 in our, 7. You can see, 6, including me. Yeah, I see what you're doing.
Just
here.
like, no, I'm talking about me and my 5 kids. You know,
I thought
like
you meant
you've got to.
Nick's a train wreck. We got to get him sorted.
So, but like that is the most exhausting to me. And so it does help to just say, guess what happened? And for you to at least hear it and bear it with me.
Yeah, I love to hear it. And I just got back from a hiring conference. I got back from OBAP yesterday, I think. And you let me go. It's 4 days. It's 4 days of being with the person listening to this. And it's 4 days of being away from you. And I'm usually flying and I want 4 extra days off. So you don't get any days off for like 12 days straight. And I appreciate that. And I thank you for that. And the extracurricular things that we do in our life, I do this not for our family, right? I do this to help pilots. And
you love it. You love talking to people.
I do love it.
And so that's part of it. Like, right? We have to help each other in our marriages. We have to help each other find those things that we love and be supportive of those things. Like honestly, Nick, I'm really inspired by how generous you are to like, let me go do my things that I want to do of like read literature all weekend.
I know. And just went to this like literature retreat.
But like, seriously, it would be very hard. Precious Liz Calkins.
We love the Calkins family.
Gave me this perspective probably when we were first married or close.
She's so sweet.
But, I just lost my train of
Our best friends are Californians that live in Texas, and they give us great perspective. We have this little community of friends that are our tightest little group of friends that we've had for almost 20 years. And so
Liz told me, she was saying one day, like, how hard it would be to go be a substitute for you and your job, for her to do that for her husband's job. Right.
Which is also an airline pilot.
He's also a pilot. But like, even if you were doing not that, just like if you had a desk job or if you were a teacher or if you know, whatever. For someone who doesn't know your work to step into it and they don't know your routine and they don't know how you normally do things, to step into it and go through the day with grace, and a lot of people saying to them, that's not how we normally do it. You know, like that would be really hard. And so like for you to come, and now I will say, since you have been working as a commercial pilot, you are more integrated, I think, with our day-to-day life than you have been previously. And so you probably know more now, but it's not your daily thing to manage.
Yeah, there's nothing scarier than me to try to figure out lunch on Saturday when you're not here.
You did great.
Oh man, I was like, well, we're all having popcorn and there's some whiskey, so let's have that. I don't know. I really hope this is useful. This is us chit-chatting for 50 minutes.
50 minutes.
50.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. I hope that is helpful. I don't know what do we
Okay,
need
I have
to
a
tell?
question.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
I want to know the hardest part of being a pilot. I also want to know, what is your favorite part?
Well, I'll say that if you're home all the time, if you love your family and you're home all the time, first, it seems really hard to go do that first training or do whatever that thing is. But if you have a 9 to 5, you don't have a 9 to 5, I guarantee you're working way more. And so you don't know how much more you're actually working and how you are, even though you're there, you're gone. You're at the soccer game and you're deep doing contracts. You're diving in deep, responding to stupid emails that don't mean anything. Or you're going, like, you're having to schedule some stupid Zoom call or whatever it is. And you've got 80 emails to get to, that, all that stuff. And the airlines, like, the only people emailing me are the people listening to this podcast right now. My airline, nobody emails me over there.
Right.
Except for that one person that I told you that listens to the podcast, which is really fun. But, all right. So what was the other question?
Okay. So wait, what do you think is the hardest part of the transition? What's the best part?
I love flying at sunset. I love being up there and just having that look and flying and seeing it and watching that sun go down. And there's just, when I see beauty in nature, like, I just think that I'm so lucky to see it. I know the people in the back can't see it because I've got this big view, right? I've got this big 180 degree view. And that, I mean, like, a plane flies over us and they're 1,000 feet above and I can see what airline it is or whatever. And they got the trails going. Like, that's
cool.
It is cool. It never gets old. It never gets old.
That's fun. Okay, wait, what was your worst part? Or what was the, maybe not worst, but hardest, like, transition, or
the hardest transition was thinking about being gone. And, like, I feel guilty all the time of, hey, I've got to go. Like, it's chaos right here, but I've got to go.
I know. Why is it always chaos?
Afternoon.
It does feel like so often it's like such a crazy moment. And then you're like, I got to go.
Yeah. It's really hard for me to decide, like, I've got to pack. I've got to get my things organized. I've got to study.
I know. It's hard for me to not be grumpy when you're packing sometimes.
I know. I'm like, that's why I pack twice as fast.
I know. Well, because it's like bracing, right? Like, you're bracing for, okay, here we go. But I will say, the more it's a routine, the more it's not like a month at a time, 3 months at a time, the more it's just like, you're gone for 3 days. We're kind of in a place of, like, you've been training a new thing. And so that's different.
The training's a little more difficult. We are fortunate enough to live in base. So, but there's this level of stress with training that, like, if you want to keep these lights on and you want to keep these kids in the school, like, I need to go 110%. I need support and I need freedom to study. Like, I mean, how often do I sit on the back porch, have a cigar, spend hours there going through the iPad? Like,
yeah. And I think it's really also, like, right. I think too, it's not just about like passing, right? It's also like I sense in you an awareness of like the responsibility that you have for the people that you're carrying, right? Like in the plane. And so the safety, oh man, you're a safety guy. But like
My
just
kids
the
don't go outside without a yellow vest on.
Oh, stop. Just that awareness of like, these are people. This is like, hundreds of people that I'm responsible for their safety.
It's not the 350 people on the plane. It's the 2,000 people and their families.
Oh my gosh.
That's important. I think about that all the time.
That's so important.
And I just pray that can I do this well? Can I be good at this? Please let me be able to make these families have not even know that this was a thing. I think about that all the time. So
you're a good pilot.
I'm just thoughtful. I'm not good. I'm just thoughtful.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's part of it, right? Like, it's not like if we can zoom out from, oh my gosh, you're packing up, you're going to be gone. You're going to be gone for weeks. If we can zoom out and see, okay, this is really important. It's really important that he or she really knows, not just really knows, but is confident and, like you said, can give 110%. And because in my experience, not with piloting things, but in teaching, right? A kid probably, in my experience, a kid will know something, but if they're not confident, if they don't have the rest, if they don't have the whatever, there's so many components to success as far as proving what you have learned, that it's not, we have to support. I hope I'm that for you. I hope that it's supportive and you feel rested and you feel like it's good.
Yeah, it is good. And I'm thankful I've got you. I'm thankful that you support this dream and that we've made the decision to run our family how we do. And for good or for bad, this is how we're going to do that. And go ahead. What's up? You want to say something?
I don't want to interrupt. I'm sorry. I was holding my breath.
I blacked out. What do you want to say?
Well, I will say, okay, I'm thinking about the people who are like, I don't know if I want to move to Chicago. I don't know if I want to move to wherever. So I will say, having lived in base, out of base, it is worth it every time to live in base.
It's a big sacrifice if you've been in your town for a long, long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think that, and I mean, I think it's worth it. Our kids are young, and I actually really get like people, I get it. If you are like geobatching or you just, have lived someplace a long time, or it's one of your kids about to be their senior year in high school or, whatever. I get it. And I know it's hard to help kids through the transition of moving. I will say for us, I think it is 1,000% worth it to live in base. It takes chronic stress, like one component of chronic stress out of your life. And I feel like chronic stress is one of those things that you can't really realize how impacted you are by it until it's gone.
Yeah. The hardest move we've ever made, was leaving Monterey, California for me.
Really?
I loved Monterey.
I know you did.
I didn't have many friends. I wasn't plugged into the community. We didn't live there a super long time. But to me, it was one of the most beautiful places on earth. Mm-hmm. And we moved to this.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And so we decided to move so that we could live in base. And now we live in base. We don't have any friends.
But we're going to.
We will. Our kids are in a brand new school. They don't know anybody. We're at a house. We We spent way too much money on a house.
I know.
At
you guys, what's going on?
Way too high of an interest rate. And put it all out there just to live in this space. And so now, like for us, we drew that circle around the town, and we found the school and the church that is our center of gravity. For us, for our family, that's it. Church is the center of gravity. School is a secondary center. Luckily, they're aligned in the same spot.
I think about the people who get so bent out of shape about you're not 9 to 5, you're not home on the weekends, you're not whatever. And here's the reality. That is a privilege that a lot of people don't have. And honestly, like, I don't know people who are making a very good living wage who just, I don't know, unless your family like inherited wealth or something, you don't just get to pick all the time what you get. And so I think giving your kids sort of a script for like when that happens to them, right? Like, oh, I wanted to be in that group at school. I didn't get to pick that. So I can huff and puff and be mad about it and sulk and not get anything out of it and ruin my own day. Or I can huff a puff about it, take a breath, and make a plan B. Like, I think, to me, that's what I think we're giving our kids when we have that conversation of like, oh, man.
Yeah. And I would say if you're making $350,000 a year and you're working 9 to 5 and you're straight up working 9 to 5 and you're making $350, stay doing that. But if you're making $350 and you're a lawyer and you're working ungodly hours, or you're $350 and you're a doctor and you're on call. Yeah.
We know those friends.
Or you're making $80,000 a year and you're working 120 hours a week because you're hustling, trying to like get past that point. Like when I was...
Or two jobs.
Yeah. If you're more than 80 hours a week, you're working more than 1 hour, or more than 40 hours a week, you're working more than one job. And if you're trying to, man, if I just get these 2 or 3, like when I was at Booz Allen, right? I was an associate and we were making like 130-ish grand a year-ish. And the vice president of our segment was making like 350, and he was freaking getting crushed all the time and just so much work. So what is your time value continuum here? What is worth more? Like clearly your time is worth more. So if you're working more, your time is worth less. So I don't know. There's a lot of different ways for that. So go into that with eyes open. Think about what it really is. Yeah, man, now we're at 1 hour and 10 minutes, babe.
I know, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, we got to let these people go back to the regular world. I hope this was useful. Thank you for spending time.
Okay, wait, I have one more last thing.
Okay, it's got to be quick.
I have an idea for a podcast later. Are you ready?
Uh-oh.
Meals on the go.
How to do meals?
People should write in and tell you better ideas than tuna fish in a can or a pouch. Ugh, a pouch.
The pouch is good when you turn the heat on in the cockpit and you just start smelling. You get all farty.
Oh my gosh.
Man. All right.
What are you guys eating for lunch?
How do you guys get on the road? Tell me what you're using. You guys are awesome. Thank you for listening. Babe, thank you for spending your night. We've got to get up in a couple hours and wake the kids up for school. So it's late and you decided to stay up to do this. So thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Hey, before you jump out of here and go on to the next podcast, can I ask a big favor? Would you mind going over to your app that you're listening to this podcast on and give me a review? Give me a 5-star review if you love it. Give me a 1-star review if it totally sucks. Put a comment in there, something that is helpful. It helps me. It helps get the word out there. It helps people find the podcast, and that's super cool. If you don't do that, maybe you could just share the podcast with a friend. Tell a buddy who's trying to figure it out, trying to sort out this pilot dream of theirs and get a little bit further. That is super awesome as well. Last, if you don't do either of those two things, how about this? Find a way today to make yourself 1% better. Do that thing that you've been putting off. Put your foot forward, make movement, get yourself going, get that inertia that you need to succeed in this industry. So that's your choice. Leave a review, tell a friend, or make yourself better. Either way, it's all a good choice. And I'm super stoked you're listening, and I will see you on the next episode. The statements made on this show are my own opinions and do not reflect, nor are they under any direction from my employer.